Welcome back, everyone. We're diving deep into Rivian's world today, specifically their Q3 2024 financials, straight from their 10Q report. And there's a lot to unpack. It's an interesting story. We're talking losses. BUT also hints of a turnaround. Plus, their connection with Amazon, definitely a head scratcher. And get this, their CEO's involved with something called the Rivian Foundation. Intrigued yet? Let's get started.
You know what strikes me about Rivian is that it's not just about EVs. It's more like they're aiming to kind of redefine what a car company, even IS, especially on the sustainability front, really interesting.
Yeah, totally. So for listeners not super familiar with them, can you give us that quick Rivian 101?
Sure thing. So American company, founded by this guy, Robert J. Scaron. She's still the CEO, leading the charge. What they do, design, build, sell, electric vehicles, accessories, the whole shebang. Big emphasis on performance, obviously, but also that sustainability angle we talked about. And their sales model is interesting, direct to consumers, but also commercial clients.
So cutting out the dealership, huh? Bold move. But let's get to the numbers. Q3, their net loss. It's still pretty hefty, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, $1.1 billion for Q3 2024. Big number, no doubt. But here's the thing. Compared to last year, same time, it's actually improved. Back then, they were looking at a loss of $1.367 billion.
So losing LAS money seems odd for a company steam growing. What's the secret sauce behind that improvement?
Well, the 10Q hints at a few things. Production's getting more efficient, that's clear. They're better at managing costs as they scale up. Makes sense. Ironing out the kinks, you know how it is. Also, maybe a slight bump in sales prices. Demand for EVs is through the roof, gotta leverage that.
Smart move. Now, no exact revenue figures in this 10Q, I noticed, but any hints about their overall revenue trend?
Yeah, even without specifics, the report's clear. Revenues are UP, big time year over year. That's a positive sign, right?
Growth strategy seems to be working.
Losing less, earning more. Sounds good on paper. But I'm curious about their cash reserves. Can they keep this up? I mean, with what they've got? That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? End of Q3, they had $7.941 billion in cash, down from $12.099 billion same time last year. So burning through it, for sure. Not unusual for a company in their phase. But yeah, raises questions about the long game. If those losses keep coming, can it sustain it?
Tightrope walk, for sure. Invest to grow, but watch the cash. Okay, one more thing about Rivian that's got me hooked. Their Amazon connection.
Yes, the elephant in the room. Can't talk Rivian without talking Amazon. Huge opportunities, but also risks. It's complicated.
Double-edged sword, right? On one hand, Amazon, massive customer. That 100,000 van order, game changer.
For a young company, that's a lifeline. Guaranteed revenue. But here's the flip side. Amazon, they're not just a customer, they're a stakeholder. Big chunk of shares, something like 15% voting power.
Makes you wonder, are they more of a, I don't know, like a silent partner? Or are they calling the shots?
Tough question, honestly. Probably a bit of both. Look, for Rivian, it's stability, especially that van deal, huge. Plus, Amazon's logistics, they're masters. Invaluable for scaling up.
Can't argue with that. But the downsides.
Yeah, that's where it gets murky. This level of involvement, it sparks doubts about Rivian's autonomy. What if Amazon changes their EV strategy? Or, God forbid, backs a competitor? Yikes.
Those are some scary what-ifs, and I bet it affects their image with other clients, potential partners. Do they see Rivian as Amazon's company? Does that make them hesitant?
Totally valid concern. It's a perception battle, really. Rivian's got to walk this line, maximize the Amazon benefit, sure, but also show their independence, diversify their clientele.
Not an easy feat. Now, speaking of balancing acts, let's talk debt. They've borrowed a fair bit, haven't they?
Oh, yeah, for sure. The 10Q mentions a bunch of stuff. Convertible notes, for one, including these green notes, interesting. Those are for sustainability projects specifically. And then they've got this secured revolving credit facility, fancy name for, an ABL facility.
Okay, for us non-finance folks, break it down. What does all this debt actually mean for Rivian's future?
Simple terms. They're paying interest on borrowed money, fueling their operations, pretty standard stuff. But those debt agreements, they usually come with strings attached. Spending limits, maybe restrictions on certain investments, that kind of thing.
So borrowing to grow, but at a cost? And with less freedom?
Exactly. Calculated risk, right. Investors are going to be watching this closely.
Now, speaking of risk, let's shift gears and talk about the challenges Rivian themselves point out in the 10Q.
A few big ones jump out. Supplier dependence, that's a biggie. They rely on single-source suppliers for key parts. So one hiccup and bottleneck city.
Putting all your eggs in one basket, as they say. What happens if that supplier messes up or gets hit with delays?
Exactly the risk. And this EV market, Cutthroat, man. Any production delays, their rivals are going to pounce.
It's not just suppliers, right? The 10Q also mentions their reliance on the CEO, Robert Scaringe.
True, true. His vision, it's baked into the company's DNA. So if you can't lead for some reason, what then? It's a question they even acknowledge in the report. Investors will definitely be thinking about that.
Makes you wonder about succession planning, right? Are they building a strong team to, I don't know, keep things running smoothly if needed? For a company with their ambitions, that's got to be crucial.
No doubt about it. And on top of all that, they've got to stay ahead of the curve, technology-wise. EV tech is changing fast.
It's a race to the future. And don't forget those regulatory hurdles. Their direct-to-consumer model, some states aren't too happy about that.
Yeah, those legal battles add another layer of complexity, for sure.
A lot to handle. Feels like Rivian's juggling a lot.
Yeah.
Fascinating case study, though, right? How to survive in a market that's changing so rapidly. Before we wrap this part up, there's one last thing. The Rivian Foundation. What's that about?
Ah, yes. That's a whole other conversation. Adds a really interesting layer to their story, connecting their business with, bigger vision.
Definitely piqued my curiosity. We'll have to dive into that in the next part. So listeners, stick around. There's more Rivian to uncover.
Yeah, so that Rivian Foundation, it's kind of unusual to see it in a financial report, right? But it's in the 10Q, so definitely noteworthy.
Totally caught my eye, too. Spill the beans. What's this foundation all about?
Well, the report's pretty vague on specifics, what they actually do. But given the name and Rivian's whole sustainability thing, safe bet it's got something to do with, environmental stuff, conservation, maybe.
So it could be renewable energy projects, protecting habitats, or even promoting, I don't know, sustainable transportation beyond just EVs.
Exactly. And the CEO, Scaringe, he's a trustee there.
Yeah.
Shows a real commitment, right? Beyond just selling cars, it's like a bigger purpose.
Yeah, paints a more complete picture of Rivian, definitely. But I gotta ask, anytime a CEO is involved with a separate organization, especially one so connected to their company, it raises a flag, right? Transparency, potential conflicts of interest, that whole can of worms.
Oh, absolutely. Anytime there's that overlap. CEO in a for-profit company, AD active in a nonprofit. Got to be extra careful, ethically speaking. That foundation needs clear separation from Rivian's business decisions, no question.
For sure, transparency is key here. It'd be great to see, I don't know, the foundation's financials, how they choose who to give grants to, how their board works, all that. Then we could really get a sense of what they're doing, see if any conflicts pop up.
Couldn't agree more. Transparency builds trust, right? Puts those concerns to rest, shows they're doing things right.
Okay, back to Rivian the business for a sec. We've covered their financials, the Amazon situation, the debt they're carrying, all the risks, the challenges, and now this foundation angle. So big picture, where do you see Rivian standing right now?
Well, it's a pivotal moment for them, that's for sure. They are making progress. Losses down, revenues up. That Amazon deal is huge. But still burning cash, fierce competition out there, tons of hurdles to clear.
High risk, high reward, classic startup story.
Exactly. Their success, it hinges on a few things. Can they manage that Amazon reliance, stay ahead in the tech game, beat those regulatory battles, and can they scale up production but keep the quality high?
A lot on their plate. Investors are going to be watching closely.
Absolutely. They got to prove they've got what it takes.
All right, let's recap for our listeners key takeaways from our Rivian deep dive so far.
Okay, so takeaway 1, they're on the path to profitability. Losses shrinking, revenues growing, good signs. But it's early days, still vulnerable, execution is everything.
Marathon, not a sprint, right?
Exactly. Takeaway 2, Amazon. Blessing and a curse. Financial stability, logistics expertise, can't beat that. What do you T? That dependence, the potential influence, it's a tightrope walk.
Gotta find that sweet spot. What else?
Takeaway 3, Rivian's facing some serious risks. Suppliers, regulations, you name it. Got to find ways to minimize those if they want to make it long term.
And that constant pressure to innovate, can't forget that.
Oh, for sure. And lastly, takeaway 4, the Rivian Foundation, it adds this whole ethical dimension. Reminds us that business isn't just about the bottom line. It's about impact, doing good.
And transparency, being accountable for your actions.
Now, before we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with a question. We've focused on challenges, but what about opportunities? What do you think is Rivian's biggest chance to really thrive?
Lots to think about, for sure. Easy to focus on the hurdles, but yeah, Rivian's got some exciting paths ahead, too.
I think their commitment to sustainability, that's huge EE. It's not just marketing fluff, you know?
Yeah.
It's in their
It
DNA.
shows, right? Their materials, the renewable energy push, and
Yeah.
of course the CEO being involved with that foundation.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And as more people, consumers care about the planet, Rivian's in a good spot to like capture that market. People want to buy from companies they believe in that walk the walk.
It's not just about the EV, it's the whole package. The brand, what they stand for, that matters, especially to younger folks.
Totally. And you know what else I think is a big opportunity for them? Their focus on like adventure, the outdoorsy stuff.
Yeah.
Their vehicles, they're built tough for people who want to explore, but, responsibly.
Smart move. It's a whole lifestyle thing, right? People want experiences, and Rivian's giving them the tools to do it sustainably.
Exactly. Now, obviously, challenges are still there. We've talked about those. But I'm optimistic. Yeah, they keep executing well.
Me too, me too. They're young, but they're quick learners, they adapt, they innovate, and with that sustainability focus, the adventure angle, building a strong brand, I think they've got a real shot at shaking things up.
Absolutely. I think we've given our listeners a lot to digest today. Financials, Amazon, the risks, the opportunities. Rivian's a complex beast.
For sure. It's a company pushing the boundaries, no doubt. And it shows, right, that business can be a force for good, not just profits.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Rivian's story, it's still unfolding. Excited to see what they do next.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. Hope you learned something new, had some fun along the way. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.